A face turn in wrestling is tough. It's easy to go the other way because you just need to be an asshole. We can all do that. But trying to drum up genuine support? That takes some serious effort and planning if you want to hear those wonderful cheers when your entrance music hits. The problem comes because on occasion, WWE likes to pull this trigger too early, or even worse, pull the trigger when there's no need to at all. That makes no sense and yet happens time and time again. When it's really bad, it can undermine a wrestler for months. Everyone seems to have forgotten that patience is a virtue. It's happened before and it will happen again, so no doubt prepare yourself. I'm Simon from WhatCulture and this is 10 times WWE tried and failed to get you to cheer for former heels. Number 10, Randy Orton. Randy Orton was turned too quickly in 2004 regardless of anything else. He'd only just come of age and at the first opportunity WWE held him into that good guy top spot and kept everything cross. The real death blow though was that the Viper didn't actually turn, his mates turned on him. What a stupid story that was. But after he had won the World Championship at SummerSlam, the members of Evolution led by Triple H destroyed their young buck because they weren't happy about what had happened. 3 weeks later, the game was dethroning Orton of his title and all of this just made Randy look like an idiot. Who was going to cheer that? It sucked because Orton had built up a cool heel aura for about a year and it was thrown away here in minutes. Even as a face it was stupid, he would attack his enemies and then run away. Remember when Stone Cold Steve Austin did that? No, you don't, because he never did. It went so badly Batista was moved into his WrestleMania 21 spot, whereas Randy was back being a heel, taking on The Undertaker. Number 9, the One Billy Gunn. I like Billy Gunn. I met him at All In and found him very personable. As a wrestling character, however, I'll never understand why he was ever thought of as a babyface. He had bad guy written all over him. This may have worked too, but we'll never know now. Instead of going in that direction, Gunn found himself in the dubious position of being left behind as WWE gained crazy momentum in 2000. DX as a group vanished from nowhere, and other performers were falling like flies as the machine gathered more and more momentum. This got worse for Billy when his role as the man who ran over Stone Cold was given to Rikishi, and remember, he did it for The Rock, and he actually had his name taken away too. Booking the right to censor stable at an angle where they literally took ownership of Mr. Ass, he was repackaged as the One Billy Gunn with a big push behind him. This was always going to struggle because Gunn had the exact same look and gimmick, but just called himself something else. If you didn't like him before, why like him now? There was no reason and soon this petered out too, and he left the company in 2004. Number 8, Carmella. Carmella's path from world champion heel to R-Truth teaming face is an odd one. If you go back through the timeline, there's a lot to question, especially as to where her asshole attitude went. She was the queen of Staten Island one day and performing dance breaks the next. If you want an explanation, you weren't going to get one. In many ways, it was because all her shtick was stolen. The Iconics were doing her smack-talking act and Becky Lynch embodied everything that we love from the good and the bad. Her position had been taken away. So she started dancing around with Truth and did have some success with it. A lot of people followed them across the Mixed Match Challenge, but it's not like this set the world on fire. Carmella doesn't get booed anymore, but she doesn't get cheered either. She's just there, which means the aim didn't really work. Number 7, Triple H. Sympathy is the most important tool in a babyface's pocket. You've got to make the audience feel your pain so they root for you. Without that, it's an uphill battle. This is why it was also so hard for Triple H to fill this role. How was that guy ever going to drum up those kind of feelings? Aside from how he looked, his post-Attitude Era heel run saw him become such a hateable guy, intentionally, that many at the time called him one of the best ever. He was a master at getting under people's skin and making them all want to see him get his behind whooped. So when he tried to shed some tears following a beating by Brock Lesnar or when he acted upset after having to get rid of Vince McMahon, not everyone took it in the way it was meant. You just couldn't because you knew what he'd done in the past and what he was probably capable of doing again in the future. He just had that kind of heat. The first time we properly wanted to cheer him in this, guys, was when he became the man behind NXT and proved to us all he had the chops behind the curtain. Even when he returned to being evil in 2014 after pedigreeing Daniel Bryan, the fans greeted it with approval. That's the game we wanted to see, and the game we expected to see. Number 6, Sheamus. Sheamus smashed the WWE scene when he arrived in 2009. Given the mega push every performer longs for, he was a bully and a brute on his way to beating John Cena for the title. In many ways, it set him up for the next 10 years. For some reason though, less than 24 months later, management decided it was time to make him a fan favourite, which nobody wanted. Also, the only idea they had was to make him a comical so-and-so. He would jib and jab his way through promos and all of the edge and attitude he had on his arrival was swiftly forgotten. The 180 was too difficult to accept and his cookie-cutter ways did nothing to play to his strengths. It did work for a little while, but there was no depth here, which is why just as the tide was shifting, he went back to his old ways and reminded us all he was a pretty decent bad guy. It just suits him better, a lad who wants to fight. Number 5, Alberto Del Rio. To this day, no one wanted to see Alberto Del Rio as the fan favorite. Another one of those guys that screams heel. The only reason he did switch in 2012 is because WWE thought they could get some mileage out of the Daniel Bryan chant everyone did love to chant. As Bryan was a heel himself though, Del Rio could rely on C, or the Mexican yes, to try and get people on his side. And sure, we shouted it out loud, but it wasn't enough to cement him as a beloved superstar. It didn't help that he'd been mismanaged during the summer of Punk, popping up to steal world championships, before leaving these negative actions behind by saving longtime friend Ricardo Rodriguez, and for some reason the Spanish announce team. It was on the cusp as it was, but then WrestleMania 29 came and went and any hope to salvage it was doomed. The night after, Dolph Ziggler came out to cash in his Money in the Bank and was cheered to the moon. Alberto never recovered, and before long was winning back championships as a dastardly villain. Boo! Number 4, Yokozuna. We all forget how good Yokozuna was these days. A huge man that could move like a dude half his size, his athletic prowess for someone that big was ridiculous. That's why he made it to the top of the wrestling world. Before his last few years, he had the combination of what you needed to succeed. Unfortunately, Yoko was around at a time when not being from America made you a heel. It did work in the sense he was booed for being proud of his heritage. How dumb is that? But it really fell off a cliff when WWE booked a face turn based on the fact Yokozuna had embraced the United States. After he left Jim Cornette's stable in 1996, his first port of call was to say it was the tennis racket holding man that had kept him silent for all this time, and that he was far more than what people assumed he was. It wasn't a flop in the sense it propped his gimmick up for a while, but sights such as Mr. Fuji waving the stars and stripes at WrestleMania didn't exactly receive the deafening noise WWE must have been hoping for. It was more intrigue respect. That doesn't really sell tickets. Number 3, Nia Jax. When you think of recent events, it's hard to imagine Nia Jax will ever get cheered again. Chastised and reviled by the fans for breaking Becky Lynch's face, which also took her out of the Survivor Series, it's the first time since she's been on the main roster that Jax is a proper heel. You can argue to your last days about whether this is proper heat, but it doesn't matter. Her music hits, everybody boos, that's the idea. Even though she only made her debut in 2015, however, WWE seems to have struggled about where she fits. She's reaching Big Show levels of turn so soon into her career, and that's always a worrying decision to make. If you confuse the issue too much, fans just switch off because they can't keep up. This is worse when the motives don't make much sense either. It's probably this why Nia's most successful face turn as a victim of bullying almost worked but eventually ran out of steam. As she's not like most girls, it was an easy jump to make, and Nia even won the Women's Championship to prove that nice guys don't finish last. With no real plan after this mind and WWE not protecting Jax when it came to in-ring competition, the concept ran thin before long, and it was back to the well once more. From Nia's point of view, the best thing that ever happened to her was a right hook to the man's cheek. It gave her proper motivation, and now we can all understand it. Number 2, The Miz. We've said it a lot on this list, but we'll say it again mostly because out of everyone else, The Miz may personify this idea the most. But from day one, the A-lister just shone as a heel because something inside of him was able to crawl out into the atmosphere and just make you want to see him get beaten up. He was that annoying. Miz has only got better at that over the years and really has been the most reliable bad guy in WWE for ages. Able to get a reaction just by raising his hand in the air, the real dream as of 2018 was for Daniel Bryan and the former reality star to clash at WrestleMania. If that does happen, it seems Miz will fill the face role, and that may not be the best idea. Why? Slap your head? Because when we tried this in November 2012, it didn't work. Whether it was a hangover from the previous year when Miz had to play third fiddle to The Rock and John Cena, or that the audience just didn't get it, it went so badly everything was thrown at the wall, including a pairing with Ric Flair. How weird was that? It never caught on as deep down we wanted to boo the hoo-ha out of him, and thankfully everybody realised this in 2014 when he returned as the Hollywood bastard. Number 1, Lex Luger. In many ways, one of the first times WWE dug their heels in to try and get a performer over in the way it wanted, Lex Luger was going to be our wrestling hero whether we liked it or not. Just go and watch SummerSlam 1993. There's even a song that tells you that, and I ain't joking. The real problem was that Luger didn't look comfortable in the role at all, which may have come from the fact he had clear instructions to become the new Hulk Hogan. No one wants to hear that. It's like fighting a massive bear. You're only gonna lose. This fell through the floor when a nationwide bus tour was greenlit, and within a year, Lex had lost all his momentum as of all people Bret Hart organically found his way to the top. The two switched places, which just meant one thing. It was the wrong time, Lex, and it was the wrong place.
Violent energy. Shooting forward into the knees of Jacob. Cleo with the elbow drop. The kamikaze catches. Wonder what a counter. And then they've been loaded.